Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Today is June 8th, 2025, and our topic today is Loving Day.
And my watch says my pulse is 71.
Oh, good, you're good and
Whoa.
healthy, good
Yeah.
and healthy.
I'm going to make it. No, it doesn't say I'm going to make it. It just says it's 71. Okay. We can continue now. Welcome, everyone.
So, what in the world is Loving Day? Well, I
Uh,
did not know this is an official day, but it is, and the date is June 12th, is official Loving Day. And the reason it is because in 1967, I wasn't aware of this. I was living in Germany at the time and we didn't get US news. But in 1967, the Supreme Court um, entered whatever you call it, they decided that to strike down the laws banning interracial marriage. And so that was a big deal. That
yeah, it
was a big
was.
deal in 67. And uh, I'm glad they did. I heard because there was a movie made
Yeah.
about the couple. The couple, his name was Richard um, Loving, and his wife's name was Mildred Jeter, and his wife was Native American and African American, and they decided to get married in Washington D.C. because they could,
Right.
and they could not in Virginia. But Virginia at that time, because it took a long time, took 9 years to get to the Supreme Court. This started in '58 that they got married, and they ended up being banned. They could not live in Virginia.
Yeah, the sentence they got was they had to be out of the state for 25 years. And it took 7 years or something like that for the court to,
Nine, nine.
9 years for the court to decide. And
But anyway, yes, we were looking at this, and there's lots to say about love. But what's more interesting is what keeps us from loving.
ah, I don't know. Yeah. Well, what keeps us, one of the things that keeps us from love is a lot of things that are possibly there, but I think one of the big things that keeps us from love is ego. And, the ego, Freud was the first person to really identify it and give it a name or give it uh, a story. And, and
Yeah,
and the story about the ego is that it's the part of our personality that's on guard constantly, that wants to have its own way, wants us to look good, be right, and survive at all cost. It doesn't care about it. It's kind of like the well-dressed man who's being run by the dress, the way he's dressed, rather than by himself. And so,
that's an oxymoron.
yeah, right. So,
Just a man with his dress.
yeah, well, I meant with a suit.
Oh,
I
yeah,
mean, of course,
yeah,
I would. This is Pride Week. Pride Month. I think we're
that's
okay.
true.
Yeah, we can do this.
That's true.
But so imagine putting on your very best clothes, and then having the clothes tell you how you have to behave, as if you don't exist. And the ego is really really a challenge for us to deal with, because you can't not have one, and you can't not include it. Uh, Deepak,
Try as you might.
right, Deepak Chopra was talking on one of the Facebook posts that I saw, which is really, it was an interesting, very, very short thing. And he said, when in my younger years, without realizing it, I was run so much more by ego than I realized, than I thought. I was run by ego in that I wanted this amount of status. I wanted this amount to be valued in this kind of way. He didn't say all of this, but the implication is I wanted to look good and be right and be on top and be recognized. And at the expense
And
of,
he got that.
oh yeah, he got it.
He
But
got all
and he
that.
said in his older years, what he's gotten is the need to give up on all of those things that make him who he is, and look for the authentic self, the source self, the real self, the self that takes the time to look at the world rather than to compare himself to the world. And one of the most dangerous things that our ego does is it's in a constant comparison and evaluation in order to determine the value that you have in relationship to whatever it is you're looking at. And this is so outrageously crazy, but we do it. I'm driving along and I pull up to a red light. I have a 2080 Tesla, and another Tesla pulls up next to me, and it doesn't have the chrome trim, so I know it's newer than mine.
2080. Oh, that's a model number.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
no, it's a 20. Ours is a 2020
Okay.
Tesla, and a newer Tesla pulls up next to me, and I'm looking at it with some kind of I,
Envy, envy.
envy. It's like, yeah, that's got thicker windows and probably gets 2 more miles per charge, and wow, what am I driving? And I found myself laughing to myself, what are you saying? You love this car. I know, but the comparisons never stop. And so it's not something that I decided I wanted. Let me compare notes here. No, my brain automatically went to compare, evaluate, and determine whether I had as much car as the car next to me. That's
Am I car enough?
yeah, right, yeah, right. And if it wasn't, then I would have to slow down and get behind him, of course, which I didn't do. But the problem with that is not that the ego is doing that, but that it is so automatic. The process of evaluating ourselves in relationship to other people to determine our value is so destructive. And yet it's an almost constant. And I'm sure in primitive times, I mean, very primitive times back after the dinosaurs, because I don't think we lived at the same time the dinosaurs did, but after the dinosaurs and the mammoths were around, they were big. The evaluation process was real important. He big, me small, me run, right? Real fast or get big stick. So the evaluation process was really helpful, but it isn't helpful in day-to-day living when we're always evaluating whether we're on top or whether we're on the bottom or whether we're where we should be. And are we enough?
Or it doesn't help loving.
You're right,
It
right.
doesn't help
But
loving.
so imagine being in a relationship with somebody and loving that person, and you go to a restaurant, and the person that you love that you've chosen, is that person enough? Because the person sitting 2 tables over, well, I don't know. Maybe that would be more than enough. Maybe I got less than I should. Maybe I'm not enough. This can go on endlessly, but what I'm talking about though is it's an almost unconscious, in fact, it is unconscious largely, process that we need to pay attention to. Now, what Deepak is talking about, which I like, is he says, slow down. Slow down and value the moment. Look at what you're seeing. Look at what you're seeing, as opposed to look for something that you can see that'll tell you whether you belong or not. Look at what you're seeing and say, wow, not as if you're there, a part of it, but as if it's there to be seen by you and enjoyed and appreciated. And imagine if everything that you did in your life was a step back to look at that world that's out there and say, wow, this is incredible. Let me look at it. It's kind of like going to a museum. And you go to a museum and you look at a piece of artwork. And the question that comes up is not, how am I in relationship to this painting? The question that comes up is, what does this painting tell me? What does this painting say? What does this painting offer? How is it?
Or the question people often ask you, what does it mean?
Yeah, I don't know, which is interesting. They ask you what it means because they want to be able to evaluate their body of knowledge and their experience to see if it compares and if they're right or they're wrong. They want it. They want a handle on it. They want to control it in some sort of way very often. And asking for meaning is not a problem unless it's leading to once I get the answer, I'll be the one who has it and other people don't. And so if you think of life as going to a fine gallery and looking at the work as if you were an observer who was privileged enough to be able to be there to take in all that's being offered to you, that would be very different than as an artist going in and saying, I hope this work is not as good as mine. I hope my work is better. I hope my work measures up. And it could be a gallery. It could be you're going to a club where they're playing music. You could be going to a place, somebody else's home that's decorated, well, better than yours. There's just so many places that you can do the evaluation and come out as not enough. And I can't think of a social worker's name. Maybe you can think of it, who PhD social worker who did the TED Talks. And she did one of her research projects led her to the conclusion that one of our biggest problems as human beings is the not enough, that we think we're not
Are you
enough.
talking about Brene Brown?
Brene Brown, yeah. She did a research on that, literally did scientific research on what is a fundamental issue that's going on. And then the not enough is a real clue that the ego is running the show. When you're not enough, how does that happen that you're not enough? Well, that's because you've been evaluating the conditions around you and determined that you don't quite measure up. And then how do you behave when you don't think you measure up? What if in every situation you came to, you said, I'm enough and I can just enjoy the experience. I'll contribute what I have to contribute and I'll be done when I'm done. As opposed to, I hope I say the right thing. I hope it's appreciated. I hope I don't look stupid. God, I'm not enough, but I hope nobody discovers that. And that goes on so often as a subtext for our process that we don't even realize it. And that's sad. It really is sad.
And it definitely keeps us from loving
No
because
kidding.
we're so self-absorbed and doing the comparison, am I enough, and is this person trying to outdo me? You know, it's just all about competition instead of about love, you know. And so what if instead our focus was on caring about others,
Mhm.
and I know you do, you help others and you care about others.
And I still compare. Yeah, I mean,
Probably all of us,
the truth is,
probably all of us probably do.
I do both, and I'm, it's the old Indian story. Which
The
wolf do you feed? The one that's angry and hurtful and harmful, or the one that is genuinely kind and supportive? And well, the one you feed is the one that's going to take over. But they're both always going to be there.
right, right,
So
yeah.
we're not going to defeat the ego, nor do we need to, or even I don't think want to. It takes a lot of energy to try to defeat something that's part of our nature. But it's okay to give more attention to the things that benefit you more. There was another researcher that was researching wolves, and we told the story before, so I won't go through the whole thing. But he discovered that one of the things that helped us survive was not the fittest or the strongest, but the friendliest, and that being friendly was a skill and a gift that allowed species to survive far better than their ability to be strong and tough. And the best example of that, of course, is a male lion whose job is to protect at all costs, whose life expectancy is relatively short, and a female lion whose job is to be kind and nurture and nourish the entire pride. They both hunt, they both are lions. The male lions don't live as long because their job is to be the strongest and the toughest. And so, and I don't know that it would work well if
And fight other big lions.
yeah, if another male lion came and said, "I'm going to take over," and say, "Hey, let's go have a beer first, okay? Let's talk this out." You know, I don't. They don't drink, so that won't work. But if you think about it, this business of being tough or being strong, the strength we're talking about very often is confrontational, or I need to be in charge. I need to be one up on you, as opposed to how could I befriend? How can I friend you? And very short, I had a supervisor years ago, and the supervisor would tell me what to do. He would say, "Do this, don't do that." And my reluctance was clear. And I was in my 20s, and there's a lot of reluctance in your 20s to do what somebody else tells you to do because they're telling you to do it. And I finally got another supervisor. And this supervisor would say, "Bob, what do you think would happen if you tried this? I'm not suggesting you do it, but what do you think would happen if you tried it?" "I don't know. I don't think it would work." But when he planted the seed, when I went into the group to try the strategy that he suggested, it was an available strategy because I wasn't being told to do it. I was being asked to consider it. And I learned a lot from him because I continued to be curious about what he was curious about. And I continued to want to try those things that he was offering me, and that being dictated to didn't work as well because I didn't listen to what was being said. I listened to the quality of the dictatorial quality.
So I think most of our problems with loving others is it goes back to our origins. You
Mm,
know, as human beings, our whole history is about survival
yeah.
and identifying those who might harm us. And those are usually people who are different from us. If they're different from us, they might harm us, they might be dangerous. And that really is the essence of all the problems in our country, the United States, right now. Uh, there is this old ideas that to be safe, you have to have the same skin color as me, you have to have the same values as me, we have to be more alike than different because different can mean dangerous. And it's sad, but it puts up a huge barrier to loving or even caring about those who are different from us. And we know for a fact that our diversity in this country has really made us stronger and better in so many ways. And yet we still, as human beings, have difficulty identifying with and getting close to those who are different from us.
I've talked to a veterinarian, and he explained to me that the dogs, if they were left to just breed on their own with everything and anybody that said yes, would end up being probably around 35 to 45 pounds and would be strong and immune to a lot of diseases. He said, but the thing that's difficult is pedigrees that end up not having the same immunities or the same protections and have difficulty surviving. What he was saying is that the best dog in the world for survival and for health and well-being is a mongrel. And we and many other countries are working careful to make sure that doesn't happen, even though there's no sure way to do it. But a quick aside, when I was a kid, we went to many different schools because we moved a lot. And I remember going from the city to the country. And I remember the kids saying, "Oh, you're from the city." Uh-huh. And I remember how difficult it was to be accepted because we were from the city. And then we moved back to the city. And the kids in the school said, "Oh, you're from the country." And I had learned by that time to say, yes, only for a year. I actually am from the city. Oh, okay. Even where you're from. And when we had a church in St. Pete, and people didn't know what we did, and don't go to Tampa. Tampa's dangerous. I mean, they're just the crime and everything.
People are just really
Yeah,
different.
they're different. I was in Tampa at a restaurant. And I said, they said, "Are you new here?" I said, "Yes." "Don't go to St. Pete. That's God's waiting room. They're in bad shape. And every place I've ever lived in the country, there is a special spot you can go that's the good spot, and then there's about them, and the difference might just be railroad tracks. Uh, One place, well, several places we've been when there's a area that's warmer than usual in the winter, and there's a name that I can't remember what they called it, but it's you're in that area, meaning that it'll be better for you in the summer and the winter time than the others. More green grows there. It's like, how does that work? But we are so quick to determine the good and the bad and the safe and the not safe on automatic. And again, that's the ego saying, "I've got it handled. I've got it figured out. I know where I am. I know where you are. I know where you belong." And we don't.
I would like to share an experience I had. You wouldn't think that you could feel hatred,
Oh,
but I had an experience where it was just so palpable, so feelable, and I was really surprised. Uh, my genealogical background is that I have a little bit of Native American. And as a child, I was very proud of that. Uh, very, very proud of being part Native American. You can't see it now, but look at the eyes. Have little slanty eyes.
a little bit.
Nevertheless, um, we were driving through, Bob and I were driving through an area of Arizona, I believe it was, maybe New Mexico, because it seems like that we were in an area of, I'm trying to remember the uh, the name of that tribe of
Yeah.
Indians. But we stopped for gasoline along the way, and just seething hatred was just being poured out of them by a glare, by a look, and I thought, what did we do? We haven't done anything,
It's
But it's
generational.
like they hated us. They couldn't wait for us to leave. And I'm like, wow, I'm sure I talked to you about it. It wasn't that strange. And they didn't say anything. It was just this feeling. Well, of course, we being the white people had really persecuted this tribe of Indians for centuries, and they were not happy and not happy with us.
Generational hate.
It's generational hate. And so uh, we often, as white people, don't get to experience that, but can you imagine what that feels like
Yeah.
to those who have different colored skin?
I know how it felt when we were driving through South Carolina, or North Carolina, I think it was, and we had our car full of audio equipment because we were doing seminars, so the car was packed. I pulled in for gas, and uh, person came out and he said, "So where are you from?" I said, "Florida." "Coming here to stay?" "Nope." "That's good." "You won't be staying long?" "No, I won't be staying long." "That's good." And then I went in and she said, I went to cash it up and she said, "Well, how much was it?" I said, "I don't know. Don't you have it?" She said, "No, we don't have it here. You should know how much it was." He doesn't know how much gas he pumped. All of this because
Everybody in the store stopped and
yeah,
looked at it.
and I think, whoa, I was waiting for the banjo. I was like, this is really
We
awful.
want to get out of here.
Yeah, really. So how much do I have to give you so that I can be free again and they don't sell me a canoe? It's unbelievable. But and I'm sure that the people that were responding to me negatively had a story and a history that made it
And
make sense to them.
a
A
fear.
lot of fear, yeah.
It's always
And
about fear.
so we got in our beat up old car and got out of there as fast as we could, you know. But
So,
it's everywhere.
A Course in Miracles says there are only two emotions.
Yeah, I love this.
There's either love or there's fear. So if anything is keeping us from loving, it's fear. And we need to be aware of that, because fear is only helpful to us when it is a matter of survival or injury. If it's not survival or injury, it's hurting you, hurting us, not helping. So we need to be aware of that, need to be aware of this survival thing, because we've not outgrown it. No matter how spiritual you think you are, push comes to shove and you will react with self-preservation. So we need to, it is, isn't it?
Yeah, I love the woman who's could be a man too, meditating. Back to God. I killed it. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, survival.
Oops, look at the time.
Oh my God, we've been having. I hope you
Way too
guys have
much
been.
fun.
I hope you guys have been having fun too, because this is a joy for us, and it's a joy for us to be able to be with community, and to be with community where we can be open and be who we are and trust, and that allows us to explore the enoughness that we have and the enoughness that we know is a part of our community. My recommendation is expand that and be more curious. And notice when you're busy, like I do way too often, evaluating a situation. And if you can, don't try to change it, just laugh at it. It's really funny the numbers of times. Before we get off, I got to go back to Ellen DeGeneres, who's a wonderful comedian. And I will never forget this in her stand-up on HBO. And she said, I was walking and I tripped. And I immediately said, I went to a run. And I'm thinking, I wanted to run. And she does this because she's afraid there might be somebody who saw her trip. So she turns it into a jog and she says, yep, I like jogging. And maybe I've done enough jogging now, I'll stop. And the embarrassment of having tripped.
She doesn't even know if anybody's watched her trip.
Somebody somewhere might have seen me trip and said, did you see Ellen trip? I don't, or that woman, I don't even know it, but she tripped. And let's talk about that. That'll be on the news. We act as if even the smallest slip could be the end of time for us. And we just got to lighten up a little bit. But so my recommendation is laugh as much as you can, especially at yourself, and how petty you can be when it comes to yourself, not other people.
Please repeat what Deepak Chopra said he's working on now.
He's working on being more present in the moment of each experience as an explorer, as inviting himself to be like in a museum and see it and to be in it. But the slowing down piece was an interesting piece too. And how am I with this rather than what does it mean to me? And I don't know that I have it entirely right, but it was on Facebook, on Reels, and it shows up. So one of you may get that during the week if you do. And anyway,
All right. So we now would like to take this time to find the screen share. Find the screen.
share.
There we go.
There.
We would like to.
We'd like to invite you to participate in our ministry by more than laughing and just enjoying as we enjoy, but by sharing your wealth and your abundance with us and allowing us to continue our ministry because it's not free. And so do what you can to support us. We'll do what we can to support you. I did get a couple of calls. We got a couple of calls, one of which I haven't returned yet. You know who you are. We'll talk afterwards and we can set up a time for us to talk and meet.
Indeed. So let's say this affirmation. We believe in affirmations. We believe that what we think and focus on manifests. So let's say together, my investment today is made with a full realization that God is the source of my supply and returns it to me enriched and multiplied. And so it is.
And we'll stop share. And we'll stop recording. Stop recording.